It's another day, which means another prospect profile, as we are only 23 days away from the NHL Entry Draft.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers. I also do some AHL coverage over at the Caller Times. I am the co-host of the Surge Catches, a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all of my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a very exciting show for you guys on Wednesday, as we are now into part 2 of our 2024 NHL Draft prospect profiles. And this time we're going to talk about Adam Jecho of the Edmonton Oil Kings out of the Western Hockey League, or the WHO, or the Dub, as some in the CHL circles call it. It'll be very exciting to talk about, like, what's he like as a prospect, where he could potentially fit for the Carolina Hurricanes, and what other prospects might come around in that area of the 27th overall pick for the Carolina Hurricanes. But before we get into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. It's like I said, we are going to be jumping into Adam Jecho of the Edmonton Oil Kings. And for a quick, rundown of who he is, I know a lot of people probably don't watch a lot of CHL. So he's actually from Zlin, Czech Republic, or Czechia. It's kind of like it's an interesting concept, because I know when I talk about Martin Nisch's winning the men's world championships, a lot of people are like, "Why are you saying Chechnya? It's Czech Republic." It still is Czech Republic, but also that country also sees itself as Chechnya as well, to kind of shorten it from the Czech Republic. So it's about the same, one in the same. It's just how you want to pronounce it. But he is from Zlin, Czech Republic. He is 18 years old. He's actually born back on March 24th, and he's considered a right winger. I know when you look at the Central Scouting prospects, they do have him listed as a center, but if you look at the elite prospects, they do have him listed as a right wing. 6'5", 201, so he is a big boy. That is a very tall right winger. So he is someone that's very, very exciting to look at. I know Bob McKenzie has him ranked 48th. I know talking about the Hockey News, Ian Kennedy looks at him as the 18th pick. Daily Faceoff has about 60, but in terms of the NHL Central Scouting, they do have him listed as the 22nd best prospect in North America. So it's very, very interesting to see how you look at where Adam Jecho was viewed at in terms of centers. I know when we talked about on Monday's show, where I covered John Mustard. John Mustard, it sits at 27 from Waterloo, and that's where the Central Scouting has him at. So you're looking about 5 picks or 5 prospects farther up, and that is Adam Jecho of of the Edmonton Oil Kings. And this past season, 23-24, was his first year in North America. It was his rookie season, Oil Kings in the WHL. He was actually taking, I know it was the import draft. He was taken by the Edmonton Oil Kings. It was actually 3rd overall in the first round by them in the 2023 CHL import draft. And funny enough, the USHL Entry Draft of the U.S. Hockey League, he was actually picked in as the 170th pick by the Omaha Lancers. So, you go from 170 from the Omaha Lancers to now you look at the CHL import draft, and you're the 3rd pick by the Edmonton Oil Kings. I would say the Oil Kings picked a really good prospect, and I think that even Jecho himself picked probably the best place to play at, because in his rookie season, he had 23 goals, 24 assists for 47 points. Did finish with a -7, but that was all in 54 games. So overall, not a bad year for his first season in North America, all things considered, where he mostly the season before played for Tapara in the U20 SM Sahara and the U18 team as well. I know with the U18 team of Tapara, he scored 21 goals, had 26 assists for 47 points in 37 games back in 22-23. And even last year, in all competitions for Chechny's U18 team, 16 games he had 6 points, but during the 23-24 season, he actually finished. He played 18 games, got 7 goals, 4 assists for 11 points. So not bad overall for him when it came to playing for the U18 team, especially for all international games and also the World Junior Championships that were held this past year. He did get 3 points in 5 games, but overall, safe to say, not a bad rookie season for him in terms of where he was at for the Edmonton Oil Kings and also playing abroad for the international team for Chechnya. And the one thing that, how he's viewed in terms of how he's being kind of scouted, this was from Heidi Kalashi of Dover Prospects, where they said, massive winger with solid puck protection tools and composure. The skills and skating hold him back, but should become a solid third-line checking forward. And also Jason Bukala from Sportsnet actually also says, despite his stature, he isn't overly physical. He boxes out opponents, but doesn't punish people physically. Potential second-line upside in time might end up as a combination two or second-line forward in the NHL. And that's the one interesting thing when you look at him is the fact that, yes, he is a tall player listed at 6'5", but he doesn't really use a lot of physicality, and sometimes it's always not a thing to be the most physical guy on the ice. You could use your body to be a good power forward in terms of you have the good stature that makes you unmovable. I think that's something that could really help Adam Jecho, especially if you're looking at a guy who is viewed as a power play specialist. He's also a really good, strong playmaker, and he does have the natural scoring ability because, like I said, you look at where he played, with the Edmonton Oil Kings in his first year, he got 23 goals in 54 games, totaled 47 his first year in North America, which actually tied his best back in the U18, Finnish league, where he got 47 points in 37 games. So he knows how to score goals. He knows how to put up points. So it's not always about being the most physical guy, but as long as you're able to box out, like from what Jason Bukala said, he knows how to box out opponents pretty well. He doesn't punish guys, but he's someone who's able to be a playmaker on the ice. He's a good right wing. He's a natural scoring guy too. And I think even too, when you look at guys like him, skating might be, sometimes it's tough for some players, especially when you're coming from the transition of, playing on European ice to now coming into, North America. And despite his skating not really being viewed as a solid option for him, for the fact that he's being scouted by the Central Prospects as the 22nd best skater in North America, does say something. And if you're the Carolina Hurricanes, yes, you do. When we went over the John Mustard prospect profile, you looked at where the depth was. A lot of it was in the wingers, but do you really see? There was a combination of having centers and wingers for the Hurricanes on their main roster, with some guys who were wingers. But if you're talking about true natural guys who can do it, I think you're looking at a guy like Adam Jecho, and you can never go wrong with a guy who's 6'5", can be viewed as a power play specialist. And for me, he could be basically a taller, Steph Nason, someone who can get in the, front of the net, screen some eyes of the goalie, being able to box guys out for rebounds and tips and stuff like that. That'd be a good guy to have on your power play. He is viewed as a power play specialist. So if you throw him in there right in front of the goal, take the goalie's eyes away, box out guys when it really matters most to get, like you said, rebounds, tip-ins, and, get in the dirty areas, go get those greasy goals, Adam Jecho could be your guy. And I don't really know how many Carolina Hurricanes that you can say there are 6'5" on this team. So he would actually add another dimension to the factor of this is a tall right winger who can actually get the job done and be able to put himself in a good spot. And he could definitely, will be able to find a time to be able to make himself a, someone who can use the offensive upside that he had in the WHL this past season in his first year, and how big and strong he is. it's one of those things where, he could be a potential, top six forward or your middle six forward. And that wouldn't be a bad impact to have a guy like that to be your middle six guy that you can also put on the power play, maybe a power play 2 type guy, where, the fact that maybe his skating isn't the best, but I think you put him on the right team and with the right development, I think you can be able to make that work. And like I said, you look at someone who, had a 0.87 points per game average. That's really, really good for a guy who played his first year over in North America. And it's one of those things where I think you give him enough time, I think it's very, very possible for him to be someone to take a look at. And overall, in terms of projections, I could see him going in a pretty decent spot within the draft. And in talking about where he could be rejected, we will talk about where he's, kind of viewed at in terms of where in the draft he might go. We'll talk about that here in a second of Locked On Hurricanes. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said at the end of segment 1, we are going to jump into where Adam Jecho could be projected in terms of where he might go in the upcoming 2024 NHL Draft. And if you look at where he's, being projected at in terms of where he might be fit best, like I said, you look at the central scouting, they do have him 22nd. And talk to some guys from the Hockey Writers, and especially Edmonton Oil Kings beat writer Jesse Corville-Lynch, someone who's, was covering the Oil Kings a lot this season. I got to talking to him and just see where he kind of sees Jecho going. And the one thing he did say to me was the fact that, he could see, he can go as high as in between the 18 to 20 overall selections, or he could also fall to 48, 50. He's saying there's not a lot of actual like where specifically he might go, because he has bounced around from like different teams between 18 and 50. He has gone into a lot of those spots where you're looking like mid to late first, somewhere in the early to mid second round too as well. So it's really interesting where he could go and all that. And I got to talking to him and I said, he could probably he could be someone that could be a good power play guy to have, like a younger Steph Nason. You'd be able to use a physical body, be able to box in front of that, like I said back in segment 1, where he could fit himself into the power play units. And, not now, but give him a couple of years to, kind of get more to, North American ice, get him time to get, still playing the W if he wants to be there, and then eventually gets to maybe play in Chicago with the Wolves, get some development with those guys, especially with other Hurricanes prospects. And when he's ready, he could be the Steph Nason of the future, where he could be a middle six guy, possible second line, possible third line guy, but still be able to go get some power play time, go be able that big bodied presence in front of the net, go doing the board battles. Yeah, he's not going to, blow guys up like Andrei Svechnikov, but still be able to use the buy when necessary to go for those greasy goals right in front of the net. And I think for the Hurricanes, you saw it back in round 2 against the Rangers, where, later on, power play was kind of struggling. Then when they started crashing the net, getting buys to the net, getting in front of Igor Shesterkin, the goals were going in, especially on 5-on-5 and even on the power play. So if you're the Hurricanes, I would say having a guy like that who's 6'5", yes, he's in the low 200 range, but he's still someone who, can be able to use his stature to, to box guys out. So I think he'd be a great addition to the Hurricanes if they do take him at 27. I doubt he falls to 60. That's the one thing I was talking to Jesse about was, yeah, he could possibly go in the second round, but if you're the Hurricanes, I don't think you get him at 60 unless you find a way to move up 10 spots in the draft to get to 50, which is kind of the range that Jesse thinks he's going to fall in, and what, is probably projected from other people around the league too, of where he might be falling. But if you're looking at the first round, he's projected to go between 18 and 20 with a shot of him going back into the later first round. So maybe if he's at 27 and maybe the Hurricanes think, okay, maybe this is the guy we want. Let's say if John Mustard is there, but they want to go for a more more, brick house, right winger. Maybe Adam Jecho could be that guy who's viewed as a power play specialist. Or, maybe if John Mustard isn't at 27, Jecho could be a good option at that spot as well. So it all really depends on where you kind of want to look at it. And I think if you see a guy like Jecho available and you think he's going to be the better fit for you, then I say that's kind of the guy you want to take a look at. Now, like I said, there are some improvements he does need to make, skating abilities, trying to look at how he views his offensive range and stuff like that, maybe be a little bit more physical, but that comes with time. You really can't expect a guy who comes into his first year in North America where you go from a lot of open ice over there, especially in, Chechnya or Finland, and you look at, how big those ice rinks are, where it's you have a lot more space. Than you come over to North America, it's a lot smaller. So now there's a lot more physicality in terms of the North America game. So that's something to get used to. I think, you give him more time. You look past just the 1 year that he had. I mean, he still had a really good season. Like I said, if you look at how it is overall for him, how much more you can ask out of a guy who got 47 points in 54 games that had a .87 points per game average. That's, for a first year, for being a guy who's not really been used to North American ice, that's really good in my opinion. And, if you're looking for more pure wingers, nothing wrong with getting a guy like that. And I know Central Scouting has him listed as a center, so maybe if he can play center, who knows? It would really be interesting to see what the Hurricanes do, but I believe that he would be a very solid option for the team if kind of that's where they might want to go. So who really knows? And I know with how Jesse looked at, if you're looking at risk-reward analysis, he does have him as a 4.25 out of 5 risk, but his reward is also a 4.25. So you're looking at a guy who's a, former U18 SM Sarja bronze medalist back in 21-22, and he was even a silver medalist at the 23-24 Hlinka Gretzky Cup, which is something that's, really, really, that's over the last few years has become really something that people have really been taking into account of, like, it's a tournament to be in that's really important. So that's a really good achievement for him. The fact that he's a node winner. He knows what he's doing. And like I said, there's a lot of things that he could work on too, but I think he'd be a solid middle six guy for the Hurricanes that, if you get him at 27, that's not really a bad pick. And you just work on those improvements, but what you got. You got a tall guy who can be your power play specialist, who can, use the body when need to. Yeah, he's not going to, like I said, he's not going to be Andrei Svechnikov. He's not going to, just bolt those guys over, but he's someone that you can use in certain situations that works best for the team. So if you ask me, if Jecho's available and you think that's the best option, I say go for him. And talking about other prospects that might be available, just like I did in the John Mustard profile, we are going to, kind of look at the central scouting and kind of see where certain guys are at that maybe, could make things interesting for Adam Jecho if he is still available at 27 for the Hurricanes, who also might be there that could make a very strong case as well. And we'll do that here in a second on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said at the end of the second segment, we're going to kind of look over and see where within the range of 27 the Hurricanes are picking at in the 2024 NHL Draft, which will be on day 1, where they could be also looking at too. And if you want more stuff on Adam Jecho, I did have a prospect profile that I wrote over at the Hockey Writers. I know on the YouTube description and also the podcast description, I will leave a link in the descriptions on both of those sites to make sure that if you haven't had a chance to read it yet, you can check out my article that I did on Adam Jecho on the Hockey Writers. So make sure to check that out when you can. But in terms of where the Hurricanes are at, they're going to be the 27th overall pick in the first round, which will be the draft will be at the Sphere 20th and 29th, and day 1 is the Hurricanes picking at 27. So Adam Jecho right now, it's for Central's prospect says that he is at the he's the 22nd best North American skater. They do have him listed as a center, but a lot of people are saying that he is a right winger. Other guys that could go somewhere around there too is Sam O'Reilly of the London Knights, who actually just lost in a heartbreaking fashion in the Memorial Cup final against the Saginaw Spirit 4-3 with a goal with less than 21 seconds left. Sam O'Reilly is there. He is also a right winger, 20 goals, 36 points, and 20 goals, 36 assists for 56 points in 60 games. He's a right winger compared to Adam Jecho, who is also a right shot, but he's also listed as a center. But Sam O'Reilly is, 6'1", 170. It's a little bit of a smaller stature in terms of that he's not, he's not a 6'5" M Jecho. He does have, some less weight disadvantage as well, but that's another guy that the Hurricanes could possibly look at if they want to look at a right winger. He has, put up some pretty decent points overall with the London Knights. London is always one of those teams that's always considered really, really good. So you do have a nice, Ontario Hockey League, Western Hockey League, which one of those guys you want to go with. Another guy they can go with, and he's one on the left side of the thing, is Andrew Basha of Medicine Hat. He's also in the WHL, listed at 5'11", 174, a left shot left winger who did have 30 goals, 55 assists for 85 points in 63 games. So that's another guy that the Hurricanes potentially could look at out of the dub if he's available. So not a bad option of three guys where you look at Adam Jecho at 22, Sam O'Reilly at 24, and Andrew Basha at 26, and that's compared to, John Mustard at 27. So overall, not a bad, assortment of guys if you're kind of looking somewhere where they're, if, they are available at 27 for the Hurricanes. And then I got to possibly look at, I know I mentioned him on Monday, is Camille Bednarik from the USA U18 team for the National Development Program, 6', 185. He did have 59 points in 53 games, and 35 of those were assists. Another name to possibly look at, Maxim Massey. I know I talked about him last time too, from Chimuti, QMJHL, 6'1", 186, put up 75 points in 67 games. And if you want to go to a really good prep school that, does produce guys, and I know this, we've talked a lot about forwards, but this guy is a defenseman that I definitely think should be on the radar for the Hurricanes as well, and that's Colin Ralph out of Shattuck St. Mary's out of Minnesota. Really good prep school, a lot of really high-end, AHLers with the Shattuck St. Mary's. He is a defenseman, but he did have 51 assists with 56 points in 50 games. So that's someone the Hurricanes go look at too if you're looking more on the defensive side. Now, they could make it very interesting too as well, where the Hurricanes might dip into the early second round, where maybe there's someone around there they could look at and say, okay, I know this guy's listed in the second round and more so in like the low 30s, maybe, low to upper 30s, maybe in the low 40 spot range, maybe someone around in those areas that they could look at too. Because like I said, the Hurricanes are, listed at, with the 60th overall pick in round 2. And around 60 is Nathan Villeneuve out of Sudbury, out of the OHL. So that's kind of where the 60 mark is. But if you're looking at the 27th pick and maybe there's certain guys that, maybe Adam Jecho isn't there, or Andrew Basha or Maxim Maxey, Sam O'Reilly, maybe those guys aren't necessarily available, or maybe there's someone that's listed early second round that maybe the Hurricanes could make a stretch pick for. I could see them going for someone like another defensive guy, Henry Muse out of the Ottawa 67s, 6', 181. Not a tall defenseman, but someone who, got 61 points, 46 of those were assists in 65 games. That's someone to look at too. Another Western Hockey League guy they could also take a look at. He is also a left winger. He's a left shot left winger, 28 goals, 49 assists for 77 points in 68 games. And that is Tanner Howe of the Regina Pats, someone to look at too from the dub. He does, though, have a lot of penalty minutes this past season. He did have 77 PIMs. So that's someone who can score a lot of goals, put up some points, but also can get into some penalty trouble as well. But if there's one guy that I really know that I think to be a really good fit for the Hurricanes, which I will be doing a prospect profile later this week, which will probably be for the Friday show. There's another guy I really think that'd be a good fit for the Hurricanes, and I did an article on him as well, so I'll also link an article to that podcast when it comes out, and that's Jacob Battaglia out of the Kingston Frontenacs of the Ontario Hockey League, 6', 196, a left shot right winger, very interesting enough, 31 goals, 34 assists for 65 points in 67 games. He's actually listed at 42. Tanner Howe is listed at 41. Henry Muse at 37. Those are some guys to look at too. But I think Jacob Battaglia, if you're looking at the early second rounds and maybe take a stretch pick on, Jacob Battaglia could be one of them. Like I said, Tanner Howell will be a good pick too. So there's a lot of guys that you could possibly take a look at in the early second round that maybe you want to take a flyer on at 27. If you, like you said, if you don't think there are certain guys that you want to get that's going to be in those spots, like I said, someone like a Sam O'Reilly, Adam Jecho, Andrew Basha, John Mustard, Colin Ralph, Max Massey, if those guys aren't necessarily available, or if you think there are some guys like a Henry Muse or a Tanner Howard, Jacob Battaglia, those guys are available, I think you can really go a lot of different directions if you're the Hurricanes. I know you could be looking at a lot of centers because you do need some center depth. That's a really good option at 27 if you want to look for a center. There's some really good wingers that you could have that could potentially, replace wingers that you could be potentially losing soon, like depending on what happens to Martin Nietzsche or Teuvo Teravainen. And I'm not saying these guys are going to be ready day one unless they pull a Seth Jarvis and, shows out in preseason, shows out in camp, and doesn't have a great first 10 games of the season to where, okay, they made a case, maybe they should have a shot. But let's say they don't, you could be a 1 or 2 seasons away, and these guys you could get at 27 or even at 60 could potentially be available at the right time. So I would definitely say there's a lot of guys to look at. And I know over the next few weeks, I know we are officially 23 days away from the draft. So definitely doing a lot more prospect profiles. So all those guys I mentioned in today's episode, we'll definitely doing a lot. We'll be doing episodes of those guys as well to be able to be like, okay, who you could be looking at 27. And then maybe we'll go start looking at 60 and see what guys could be available at 60 for the Hurricanes, second round pick as well. So a lot of options at 27. Centers, you got some good wingers you can look at. You look at the defensemen, because sometimes you can never have too many defensemen because they do develop a little bit differently than you do with the forwards and even goaltenders. But if you're the Hurricanes, I don't really see them taking a goalie in the first round, maybe not even the second round, but I would say you could definitely see a lot of maybe forwards could be the ones they could be targeting, at 27 and maybe go defense at 60. Who really knows? But that's something to really keep an eye on. But I would say overall, if you're looking at a guy to maybe take a look at, Adam Jecho could be a good one at 27, like I said, earlier in the show. Tall, 6'5", is not, the most physical guy, but he knows how to use his frame to box out players, and that's someone that he could really use on the power play, especially for net front presence to get rebounds, tips, the greasy goals that you definitely need. And that's the type of goals you need in the playoffs. You need those greasy goals, those NHL playoff goals. So maybe in the future, that's someone they could definitely take a look at. So, yeah, I see Adam Jecho, the Edmonton Oil Kings, could be a really solid option for the Hurricanes at 27. Just like I said with John Mustard, how he was, someone that we're going to be really good at for the Waterloo Blackhawks of the USHL. So definitely two guys to keep an eye on. And like I said, I'm really excited to bring you guys more prospect profiles as the weeks go on, as we get closer and closer to the NHL Entry Draft, which is on June 28th and 29th at the Sphere in Las Vegas that Saturday. But that will wrap up today's episode of Locked On Hurricanes. Hope everyone enjoyed this another prospect profile. Let me know what you think of these. If you are on YouTube, make sure to go in the comments. Let me know what you think of Adam Jecho. Could he be good for the Hurricanes, or who do you think the Hurricanes should go and look at for 27? So, but yeah, check it out. I hope everyone really enjoyed these shows. I'm really enjoying getting a little bit more into the prospect stuff, because in the past I haven't really been up on the draft a lot and looking at prospects, but been with the Hockey Writers and doing this for Locked On Hurricanes, getting more into the prospect side of things, and there's a lot to talk about. A lot of good options for the Hurricanes. So I hope everyone's enjoying these episodes. I know I'm enjoying them. So hopefully, being able to do that gives you guys more of a what the Hurricanes can be looking at when it comes to the entry draft that's going to be here in a few days. But if you want to keep up with me on social media or the podcast as well, you can find me on X at OneTrueZach. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. If you go to the links in my bio, you can find all my articles, newsletters, and all that stuff that I do for the Hockey Writers. You can check out all my other content over at the Calder Times for anything AHL. You can listen and watch my other podcasts and Surgecast on podcast platforms and on YouTube. And for this show of Locked On Hurricanes, there's a link to go check out the episode on all podcast platforms. Make sure you leave a 5-star rating. And if you leave a review, I might just read it on the show. If you're on the YouTube side of things, make sure to hit subscribe and make sure to hit the bell notification and turn on all notifications so you don't miss an episode. And make sure to leave a thumbs up button and let me know what you think of the show, because I definitely want to get this thing to growing and to make sure to have more Keeniacs turn into everydayers just like you to check out this podcast. And then speaking of that, make sure to share it with them and make sure that they subscribe as well, because we are over 870 subscribers. We're on the goal to 1,000. If we get to 1,000, I might just do something special for you guys. But I hope everyone enjoyed the episode. Hope everyone enjoys their Wednesday. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.